For the Vikings, death wasn't the end. It was a voyage, a final journey across the veil, guided by gods, shaped by honor, and marked by fire, earth, or sea. They didn't just mourn in silence. They sent their dead off with weapons, feasts, ships, and sometimes with flames that lit up the night sky. Today we're exploring how the Norse honored their dead, not just with ritual, but with a deep, unwavering belief in what lay beyond. From the rowdy halls of Valhalla to the chilling first-hand account of an Arab traveler, this is the real story of Viking funerals. First, let's get one thing straight. The Norse didn't believe in just one afterlife. Your destination depended entirely on how you died. If you were a warrior who fell in battle, you might get scouted by the Valkyries, Odin's divine shield maidens, and personally escorted to Valhalla, the legendary Hall of the Slain. Life there was an eternal party for the battle-hardened. You'd spend your days training, fighting, and being miraculously healed, and your nights feasting on endless boar and mead. All of this was preparation for Ragnarok, the final epic battle between the gods and giants. Valhalla was the ultimate reward for a life of courage. But what about everyone else? Not everyone went to Valhalla. If you died of sickness or old age, a fate they called a straw death, your soul journeyed to hell. No, not the fiery pit of brimstone we often think of. Hell was a quiet, misty realm ruled by the goddess of the same name, the daughter of the trickster god Loki. It was a solemn, shadowed place for peaceful souls to rest. A bit gloomy perhaps, but not a place of punishment. And there were other options too. Seafarers lost to the waves might find themselves in the coral halls of Ran, the powerful sea goddess. Others, especially women, might be chosen by the goddess Freya to dwell in Folkvanger, her beautiful, lush meadow. The point is, death was always a journey to somewhere. And because death was a journey, the deceased needed supplies for the trip. Think of it like packing for the ultimate road trip into the unknown. They needed food, weapons, tools, horses, even loyal companions. And for the elite, the chieftains, kings, and queens, nothing less than a ship would do. Archaeology paints a vivid picture of Viking funerals, which ranged from the simple to the absolutely spectacular. Most common folk were buried in small, humble graves with a few cherished personal items. A comb, a knife, a favorite brooch, just enough to see them on their way. But the leaders, their send-offs were the stuff of legends. The ship burial was the ultimate status symbol, the highest honor a person could receive. The ship wasn't just transportation, it was a sacred vessel, a chariot for the soul. In places like Oseberg and Gokstad in Norway, archaeologists have unearthed massive burial mounds hiding entire Viking ships, perfectly preserved in the clay for over 1,000 years. Inside, they found the remains of nobles surrounded by an astonishing array of treasures: intricately carved sleds, wagons, sacrificed animals, beautiful textiles, and priceless artifacts. These weren't just graves. They were time capsules, designed to provide everything a powerful ruler would need in the next life. Of course, not everyone was buried. Cremation was also incredibly common and held deep spiritual meaning. On a hilltop or a windswept shore, the body would be placed on a massive pyre, piled high with grave goods and set ablaze. The Norse believed that the smoke billowing into the sky carried the spirit directly to the realm of the gods. It was a direct, powerful, and visually stunning way to say goodbye. And this brings us to one of the most vivid and visceral accounts we have of a Viking funeral. And it doesn't come from a saga or a poem. It comes from an outsider, an eyewitness who saw it all unfold. In the 10th century, an Arab diplomat from Baghdad named Ahmad ibn Fadlan was traveling along the Volga River when he encountered a group of Rus Vikings and witnessed the funeral of their chieftain. His detailed report is both fascinating and chilling. He described a 10-day-long ritual. The chieftain's body was temporarily buried while a new set of clothes was prepared. When the time came, he was exhumed, cleaned, and dressed in his finest garments, then placed in a lavishly decorated tent on his ship. which had been pulled ashore. He was surrounded by offerings of food, drink, and weapons, but he wasn't going to make the journey alone. Ibn Fadlan wrote that a female slave volunteered to accompany her master into the afterlife. On the final day, after a series of complex rituals, she was brought to the ship. There, an old woman known as the Angel of Death performed the final rites, ultimately ending the girl's life before the pyre was lit. Ibn Fadlan watched in awe as the flames consumed everything. He wrote, "The fire devoured the wood, the ship, the man and the girl, and a strong wind blew, carrying their souls away." This kind of human sacrifice was likely rare, reserved for only the most powerful leaders, but it reveals a powerful truth about their worldview. Viking funerals were profound acts of faith, community, and cosmic transition. This wasn't just about disposing of a body, it was about ensuring a successful journey into the cosmos. And these honors weren't just for men. High-status Viking women received burials that were every bit as elaborate. The famous Oseberg ship burial, for instance, held the remains of two women, one believed to be a queen or a high priestess. They were surrounded by ceremonial wagons, exquisite tapestries, and a wealth of ritual objects, showing that their spiritual and political power was immense. Your funeral was a direct reflection of your status and worth in life, regardless of gender. But what about those on the margins of society? Not everyone was honored. Slaves or outcasts might be buried unceremoniously, sometimes face down, with no grave goods to aid their journey. In some cases, their bodies were simply left exposed to the elements. The Norse also had a deep-seated fear of the dead not staying dead. They believed in the Draugr, terrifying undead corpses that could rise from their graves to haunt the living. These weren't slow, shuffling zombies. They were supernaturally strong, vengeful spirits. To prevent the dead from returning, bodies were sometimes staked into the ground, decapitated, or buried far away from settlements. For the Vikings, the threshold between life and death was both sacred and incredibly dangerous. It had to be crossed with caution and the proper rituals. Over time, as Christianity spread across Scandinavia, these ancient customs began to fade. The practice of including grave goods vanished. Cremation pyres were replaced by churchyard burials. Grand burial mounds gave way to simple Christian graves. Yet the legacy of the Viking way of death endures. Today, modern heathens and followers of Asatru honor their ancestors with rituals inspired by these old ways. And in our movies, games, and stories, the image of the burning longship sailing into the sunset remains a powerful and enduring symbol. It represents courage, legacy, and the profound belief that death is not an end, but a passage. So the next time you see a Viking funeral on screen, remember what you're really watching. It wasn't just about spectacle or drama. It was an act of devotion, a final magnificent gift to a loved one who was just beginning their greatest journey. If you're as fascinated by the myths, history, and mysteries of the North as we are, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. You won't want to miss our next story from the incredible world of the Vikings, Ska.